Hello and welcome to another edition of the LaLanne Pass It On podcast, where we talk to people who are continuing Jack's mission of helping people help themselves. My name is Greg Justice, and I'm here with the real star of the show, my co-host, Elaine. LaLanne. How are you today, Elaine?
I'm great. And we've got a really interesting guest today. And so I'm going to let you tell me all about her. Okay.
Absolutely. Hey, our special guest today is Daniella Forrest. Now, Dee is a functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner. She is a whole health educator, a certified personal trainer, a corrective exercise specialist, and a performance exercise specialist. She launched her coaching and wellness company, DFitLife, in 2007. Dee, it is a pleasure to have you as our special guest today.
Oh, the honor is all mine. I am so ecstatic.
I want to know what DFit is. We have our business is BFit, and you're ABC DFit.
D like Daniella, Dee.
I guess. So that's
That's simple.
That's great. Okay, now I got that. Now I know the rest of the story.
As Paul Harvey would say. Well, hey, Dee, thank you so much for joining us today. And you have been in this industry for a long time. You started your business in 2007, your own practice.
Right.
And I always like to get the backstory of what brings a person into our industry and, you know, what was your motivation? I know that you had some health struggles of your own and some things. Was that the motivation? Give us a little insight into what got you into this.
What got me into it, yes and no, were some of my issues. I was born in the 70s, raised in the 80s and the early 90s. And I fell prey to the thinking of, being skinny was health, right? Like if you looked great, if you were thin as a rail, that's all that mattered. And I took it to the extreme and ended up with anorexia. I was very, very frail. And I was working in a retail job for a lot of years, doing very well, miserable, just not healthy. And I had a kind of a Jesus conversation with my mother, and I decided to get certified as a personal trainer in the evenings in my spare time. Quit my job cold turkey at, oh God, how old was I? 27, I think, 28. And just went all in. And I just fell in love with my new work, like
That's nice.
actually impacting people's lives on a daily basis. It was just so
27 is when I changed my life, and I threw out all white flour and white sugar, and I stopped smoking, and I stopped eating bear claws and candy bars for lunch and all that stuff.
I was just saying, I can't imagine you doing any of these things.
Oh yeah, well I just wanted to let you know that you and I were in the same boat, but I was
There's something about that age, that just, it's like, you know what, I either need to get serious or something needs to change here, So anyways, I ended up having a really, really horrific fracture, snowboarding with my boyfriend at the time. I mean, I shattered my distal tibia. They couldn't repair it. I mean, I was months and months, over the knee in a cast. I found out I had osteoporosis at, the ripe age of 28. And, the doctors at the time just said, well, you need to take more calcium and you need to exercise. And I thought, clearly that's not working. So there's got to be more to this story. And then I just started learning more and more and more. And I realized that, my clients weren't looking any different if they weren't changing what they were eating, and then even those people who had made lots of changes still didn't feel great. So I needed more tools to figure out what was going on. What was the root cause of their eczema or their weight gain or their hair falling out? There's something else here. And that's when I found functional diagnostic nutrition, which allows me to do some testing to look under the hood and see what how it's all connected. You know, what can we do to start moving you in the right direction
Well,
besides just food and
how did you
exercise?
start? I mean, how did you, what kind of a diagnostic, uh,
Well, it took me a couple years. I mean, I was a single mom working full time. I had my own personal training studio in Mountain View, and you know, as you work your way through the course, you're doing this testing yourself. And one of the things I found so interesting, you know, when I went through my separation, it was very challenging on me physically, you know, emotionally. I got very, very thin again. And I did one of their stool tests, and it found something called cryptosporidium. And this parasite is correlated strongly with anorexia nervosa. And the way our gut health impacts our brain health and vice versa. And when I found this, I thought, I mean, that can't just be coincidental, you know? And as I started to heal my gut, and as I started to, I never really ate bad. I've always been, you know, really, uh, you know, fitness focused, but I started eating more protein and, you know, supporting my health, giving myself more vitality. It was just remarkable. There was no going back.
You know,
Right.
let's park there for a second and dig into functional diagnostic nutrition and talk a little bit more in detail, because I think what happens a lot of times when people go onto their annual physical with their internist, they will get what's called a metabolic profile, typical blood test, right?
Right.
But that's a very small piece of the bigger picture, isn't it?
It is a very small piece. And I would argue, I feel like the last couple of years when my clients give me their blood work, it's getting smaller and smaller. The doctors are ordering less and less really important tests, like ferritin's not on there.
Yeah.
The last two tests I got, they didn't have vitamin D. Like, how are you not testing vitamin D?
Agreed.
I mean, it's
Makes no sense at all. And they rarely, if ever, do any hormone testing. So let's
and
talk
if they
about what.
do, quite often it's, I mean, serum blood testing for hormones can be helpful to
Mhm.
some extent. But what I find is a lot of my clients' numbers are within range. First of all, they're not telling women that there's a time of the month to check these things, right? They're going in during ovulation when their hormones are at their highest, and then they're being told that they need to go on a statin because their cholesterol is too high,
Mhm.
as opposed to maybe doing it in the last week of the month
Mm.
when they would be at a lower level. You know, I mean, that just makes me crazy.
Mm.
Anyways, but um, but you know, looking at also how we don't want to shoot for just feeling okay. Like, I don't want to be compared to the average Jane and Joe out there. You know, what are the optimal levels of these numbers so that
Right.
I can feel my best? What are the patterns within those numbers that might allude to some gut dysfunction, some hormone dysregulation, you know? Um, and I also like to do a little bit deeper hormone testing. So looking at urine metabolites. So not just do you have enough estrogen, testosterone, DHEA, what is your body doing with those hormones? You know, I'm on hormone replacement, so I need to check this. In fact, I just picked up my test kit. I'm waiting for the right day of this month to do it, and I'm going to check to see how is my body processing my estrogens, my testosterone. What are my cortisol levels doing? I mean, it's really important stuff to keep your eyes on.
Now, do you do your own testing? I mean, you do the testing. Is
Well, I
that
can order all the
your
testing.
test that you just showed us?
Right, but I'm not going to analyze it for myself. I mean, obviously, I understand what the results are. I have a wonderful practitioner that I work with who helps me understand, what do these numbers mean? I mean,
So
I
they
can't write
go
my
to
own
their
prescription.
practitioner to get the tests to get these tests. Is that
Yes. Yeah.
yeah?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Because I'm a practitioner with them, I do order my own tests, but I don't analyze them and I don't give my own prescriptions. You know, I work with a very smart doctor who helps me put all this into the context of my unique life, you know, and that's what this book was about, was how do you own your wellness? And one of the reasons I'm so excited to talk to you is because I know Jack was all about telling people to have agency in their health and in
mhm.
their wellness. You know, that
Yeah.
that's what he
Well,
did, right? And my job wouldn't even exist without him putting that out into the ethos for so
Yes.
long.
Daniela, would you hold up a copy of your book so that I failed to mention that in your introduction. Own Your Wellness. Now, that's been out for a little over a year, correct?
No, 3 months.
Oh,
It just
just
came
released.
Yeah,
Oh,
Okay, so it's newer than I thought. I thought it'd been out
yeah.
here. So Own
Is
Your
it on
Wellness.
Amazon? Is that where we can find?
It's on my website. It's on Amazon, Target, Books a Million. Anywhere you can buy a book, you can find Own Your Wellness.
Awesome. Okay, so Own Your Wellness.
Yeah.
And you released that 3 months ago. And the start to finish of the book, give us a good synopsis of it in a paragraph.
I'd be curious to hear, Elaine, what do you think is harder, writing a book or selling and marketing a book?
Well, I didn't think about marketing or selling. I just thought
Okay.
Greg's a
The
publisher.
answer to your question
I
is the
said,
second
I'll
part.
just,
Yeah, right? Oh, man.
I just,
So it
I
took me
just
about a
went-
year.
I just dug out, what I did, how I started was, I started out Jack's writings. I've got a whole, got files of it. I saved all of his writings.
Mm.
I saved everything. Jack was not a saver. I mean, he lived in the now. He didn't care about yesterday. Yesterday is gone. Tomorrow isn't here yet. So he's was
Love it.
all involved in today. But so I saved all that stuff. I dug them out for our book, and then we went from there. We went from I told a story about my life, how I was a junk food junkie and ate bear claws and smoked cigarettes and blew smoke in his face and all that stuff. And then we went on to we went on to the family. We got the family in there, and then all of a sudden we went on to people that have known Jack, and so is your book is tell us about your book now. Is that how kind of you started your book, is with an idea, with a
Yeah,
just
it took me a while to conceptualize it. I had always worked. I did personal training was the majority of my life and my day. But when the pandemic hit, I had only done one Zoom call my entire life when the pandemic started. And then, the following Monday, I was on Zoom all day long. All of a sudden, I just couldn't believe it. And I started doing more health coaching because people were desperate for how to stay strong and how to keep their immune systems thriving,
right.
Um, and I thought, God, it's so hard to only work with one person, 1 hour at a time. And I realized that, we all have these common issues, like regardless of what our unique problems are. And I thought, maybe I can take those common threads and organize them into this book. And so I came up with the outline for it. And I love writing, and I had a ball with it. And my goal was to complete the book before my grandparents passed, which I did. And I was able to get the first draft completed to my grandmother at 93 years old, right before she passed. And my grandfather, who passed last year at 97, he helped me comb through all of my publishing contracts to choose from, and was making sure all my I's were dotted and T's were crossed. Anyway, so it meant the world to me to get that done, because they were just like yourselves. They just lived they would go on these long walks every morning. They always ate home cooked meals. They were just all about community.
They lived to be in their late 90s.
Absolutely. That's right. That's right. They were just, anyway. So I wanted to give people this ability to take all of this bombardment of information out there. And nowadays it's something different every moment.
Oh, it's all in your book, all of this information that you've
and then how do you apply it to yourself? So every few pages you take a break from reading and you make some notes. Okay, so here she suggests this. Do I want to try that? Yes, no, maybe so. And then at the end of the book, you take all of those charts and graphs and you put them together into your own wellness plan.
Oh,
So
great.
it's very personalized. That's the beauty of it.
Sounds like a plan.
Yeah, not one size fits all. Much like, when you talk about the hormones and all that stuff, supplements are so important in that bigger picture because some people are deficient in certain ones and others aren't. So really that personalized approach. And we were talking a little bit before we actually started the recording about Jack LaLanne supplements, and you know how much how important that was to Jack. And
Yeah, right.
you've got some of his original supplements.
Right. Jack, when I first met him, and he was first on TV, he believed so much on supplementing. Uh, he believed that exercise is king, nutrition's queen. Put them together, and you've got a kingdom. And to supplement. So one of the first things he came out, he was a big protein believer. So one of the first things he came out with is high protein. So this is one of them that he came out with. And then
Is that you on the bottle too?
was
With
an
it?
appetite appeasement. Yeah, that was an appetite appeasement.
Elaine, she asked, "Is that you on the cover of the bottle?"
No, that's not me. That was a friend of his wife.
Now
And,
that goes back to the
that's
1950s.
before I came into the
Oh, okay.
started dating him, you know.
Was that then in the 1940s?
No, this was the 1950s, but I
50s,
didn't
okay.
date him until 1953.
Okay,
And I knew him from television in 1951.
right.
But I didn't, I wasn't involved in his business or anything. I just saw him at the studio, and
Mhm.
we'd see each other in the newsroom, and where we were getting ready for our shows. And that's when he came over and said, "You should be eating apples and bananas and oranges." I didn't like you, Dilly. Oh yeah. but but he brought this guy over with a very big corporation out to here, and he said, "Going to take 30 pounds off of that man in 30 days." And he did. And then he had this exercise program at the studio, and I joined it because I was a swimmer in the Minneapolis Aqua Follies, and I thought, well, the sands of time are shifting. And so that's when I started exercising. But then I didn't actually date him until a couple of years later. So that's the story. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
There you go. Well,
So
Daniella,
but here's another one. Jack believed in desiccated liver. Oh, he
Take it every day.
desiccated liver tablets. And so when we got when we got a general manager, he said, "You can't be selling." I said, "We're selling tons of desiccated liver." And he said, "You can't do it. Nobody's going to buy desiccated liver." So we came out with whole liver.
Whole liver.
And that's Jack in the 1950s. And then then we came out with Vitalane. That's a multivitamin. And then I've got he's got vitamin C, vitamin B, D, all that over there. But I'm not going to bring the whole case over here.
Oh,
So now you know a little bit more about my story.
Yeah, so we know the importance of supplementation, and I assume that's part of the process in your diagnostic process, is figuring out what's right for the individual and in what
And
amount.
when, right?
when.
So, I think like Jack said, it's like you have to eat right first. You have to dial in movement first. And then you can sprinkle on top the little icing that is the supplements, and yes, most of us need some form of supplementation depending on what your goal is.
You should see the ones I take.
I'm sure. Do you take a bunch still?
Oh my gosh, yes. I'm loaded.
But for those of us who are in the industry and we're doing this all the time, I play with all kinds of different lotions and potions, right? But for the average person, figuring out, should I be taking this cool new whatever that just came out last week? My husband lost 10 pounds taking this other pill or whatever. How do you know if it's going to work for you? And what I find a lot of people do is they start taking all these things at once. And then they have no idea why they have digestive distress or which pill is causing them to get a headache.
In case it works.
Yeah, exactly.
Your insurance, that's your insurance plan.
So I try to explain to people and give them a format to introduce them one at a time at the minimally effective dose, see how their body reacts to it before they layer in the next one. And then from time to time, let yourself run out of that supplement for a minute, see how your body's reacting. and then maybe you put it back in,
That's
or
a
maybe,
good idea. Yeah.
because trust me, my medicine cabinet is way too full of supplements. I mean, the amount of money I spend on these things. But like I forgot to reorder my berberine, and I haven't been on it for a couple of weeks. I'm like, I don't think I really need this anymore. I'm going to take a break. Maybe I'll come back to it. But, you have to kind of reassess these things over time because your body's changing. We're constantly evolving. So how do your supplements, your movement, your nutrition should be evolving with you.
Know yourself, know your body.
It's
You're
easier
not-
said than done for most
Very
of us.
much so. Yeah. And in fact, I think it was Gray Cook that said, if you're not assessing, then you're just guessing. So that's where the importance of your field comes into play, is you need to assess the individual, and then you can take them down that path toward whole health.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I assess myself all the time. I mean, I've always done that.
Yeah, you've got to
I
assess.
think I said, oh, I think I need more iodine. Maybe I need more, maybe this. So you just use yourself as a little guinea pig.
Absolutely. Well,
Sure. And running that testing frequently, I mean, I can't, during the pandemic, a lot of people didn't even go to the doctor for a long time, right? So, finally catching up on those blood panels, like you were talking about, that's the simplest way to start. Just start there, what is your thyroid doing? All of these things they're all interrelated. And if you're not feeling well, there's something amiss that you can impact.
You need to go to somebody who knows what they're doing, and so you can assess yourself, but you need somebody to talk to and discuss it with.
Absolutely.
Well, and unfortunately, we are a society of quick fixes. And, the latest craze is the drug Ozempic.
Sure.
Let's talk a little bit about that. What are your thoughts on that, and what it
I have
does?
so many thoughts on that. Well, where do I start? First of all, I think that there was a lot of like a knee-jerk reaction when this thing first came out. Myself, I mean, I was guilty of this as well. Like, oh no, this is ridiculous. It's way blown out of proportion. That said, the more I'm learning about peptide therapy, and that's really all a GLP-1, semaglutide and tirzepatide, they're just peptides, which for the lay audience are amino acids that make up a protein. It's just smaller versions. That's it. We make GLP-1 endogenously, right? That's part of our hunger and fullness signaling. So giving people a little bit of a boost if they are deficient in this, I do see the value. And I have some clients who've been on extremely low doses getting a good result with the combination of changing diet and lifestyle and lifting weights and eating more protein and doing all the things to help yourself be successful over the long term so that you can eventually get off of this. I would argue the biggest challenges with this drug, and I've written blogs about what I really think about, the long-term effects of these things at higher doses. But when anybody loses a fair amount of weight quickly, what happens is we lose muscle mass more than we lose fat mass. And then when you have a rebound and you gain the weight back, you're not gaining muscle back, you're gaining more fat back. So what happens with this yo-yo is you might start off, let's say 50-50 muscle fat. By the time you've yo-yoed a few times, you're 80-20 fat to muscle, right? And we want to work on keeping that balance, and as we get older, it's harder and harder to keep that muscle coming on. So my biggest issue with this is people think they don't need to make huge lifestyle changes in order to be successful. This is not a fix-all.
Yeah. Well, and some of those lifestyle changes, a lot of people do cardio, quote unquote, do cardio, right? And I know you wrote a blog post once about that humans aren't meant to, quote unquote, do cardio.
It's not
They're
a
meant
thing.
to move with purpose. Let's dig into that.
Sure. I was the cardio queen, man. In the 90s, you could go into the gym and you would see me on my Stairmaster for an hour every day. And it didn't serve me. It certainly didn't make my bones any stronger, Now, if I accumulate an hour of cardio a week, that's a lot. You know, occasionally I like to run sprints. I take my dog for a walk every day with my weight vest on. That's about it. So, you know, yes, humans are designed to run. Some of us are really good at running, right? Great. But you have to balance that with movements that the whole body is designed to do. We're not designed to just be in this sagittal plane going this direction all day long, right? You need to lift heavy things. You need to rotate. You know, you need to pull, you need to push. And if you're not building that into your daily routines, you're going to lose it.
Yeah.
Jack
Jack
was
always
very, Jack was very concise
Yeah.
and very short. And when he would come up with ideas, he says, everything is so simple. And he told me the first thing I learned from him was, if you do everything in moderation, you can't go wrong. And what you're talking about now is moderation. You get a little of this, a little of that, a little of that. It all adds up. You know, 2, 2, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Everything is simple, but sometimes we make it very complicated.
Well,
I
you
think
know,
for sure.
Jack always talked about doing weights with very little rest in between. And
Right.
that is cardio when you do it that way. And that was one of the early things that I learned from Jack.
You don't
You
need
know-
an hour. He'd say, you don't need an hour on the treadmill. You don't need, you know, you get your cardio with you're still getting your cardio. My gosh, if I go on the treadmill, if that's cardio, if I do knees into chest, I'm puffing away, if I have
Right.
to do 20 or 30 of them, you know, and he knows I can do jackknives, you know, I can do 20 jackknives like that.
Every day.
Well, to me, that's a little cardio. I'm puffing and huffing afterward.
Hey, and that's movement with purpose. I think what you're
Okay,
saying.
so Jack invented the jumping jack.
No,
Did he
he-
also
No,
invent the
he
jackknife?
he didn't invent it. What he did is popularize it. It was invented back in the 1880s.
Okay.
But yeah, Jack certainly popularized it through
Popularized.
television in the 1950s. Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
the jumping jacks go back to the 1800s or more. Yeah.
Okay.
But he popularized them because every day in silhouette, he was doing his jumping jacks, you know.
I love it.
And speaking of jumping jacks, we've
Yeah.
got a big event coming up
Yes.
Friday, July 12th at 1 p.m. Pacific time. And Daniella is going to be there with us, showing us how to modify jumping jacks, because not everybody can jump with high intensity.
No, see,
Tell us about how you're going to modify those jumping jacks for those.
Yeah, and even reaching your arms overhead is hard for people with rotator cuff issues. So, you know, moving them forward, maybe squats versus jumping. Some people have balance issues. So anyways, I put together a little video that I posted today, actually, on my socials and on YouTube, showing you the 3 different variations that you could try, or some version thereof, you know.
Well, tell us about it. Now, here's what I do. My modification is going to be me on stage. I'm going to be doing this, and I'm wiggling my hips, but I have bone on bone knee, so I can't jump anymore. And my balance is bad because my eyes are bad, my ears are bad. I'm practically blind in this. I'm blind in this eye, so I can't jump. But you bet your boots I'm going to be there doing this.
Fabulous, fabulous.
Now tell us about your modifications.
Well, you want to see him? I can stand up. So I put one together because I don't like to jump after having kids. You know, the pelvic floor doesn't always work consistently well. So that was one for me. I like to do this one. It just feels good. I get my hips moving a little bit. Maybe you do a squat, reaching for your ankles. And then but if your knee's fat, you know, then maybe you take that part out and you can just bend forward. And then if you can jump, but your rotator cuffs don't work so well, maybe you keep it here.
Yes, those are great.
And you posted those on your social media, right?
Yes, I just put them up today.
What's
So
your
make sure that you go to
how do we find them?
Sure, Forrest, D.Forrest on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn. I'm in all the places.
And what
You
about
know,
your website? What is your website where people can learn more about you and all the wonderful things that you do?
Sure, you can go to ddforrest.com or DFitLife.com. And you can see, you can learn a bit about coaching with me and what that looks like. I put blogs up on a regular basis, and you can learn all kinds of new things there. You can buy the book on there as well. And you can just reach out to me and let me know how you're doing. If you're reading it, I love to hear people's stories about what they're doing, what they're changing, how it's affecting them. It just makes me so happy.
well, you're going to be down there on the July 12th, and
Yes.
July 12th at 1:00, we're going to beat the 2,251 jumping jacks that were done in Poland, and that's what we're trying to beat. So we want everybody to come down to the Los Angeles Convention Center July 12th, and we're going to be jumping at 1:00. Get there early and just come on into the West Hall, right? No, you want to give us
Yeah,
some
to the West Hall, and we need you to sign up for that. So make sure you go to either ideafit.com and sign up, or jacklelane.com. You can sign up at either place. It will stream live on Facebook, and it will be on the official Jack LaLanne Facebook page. It will be streaming live. So make sure you go sign up for it, ideafit.com or jacklelane.com. And we look forward to seeing you there. We look forward to seeing Daniella there. I will be right next to Elaine, serving as her balance as she's doing her jumping jacks. And we can't wait for that event. We look forward to seeing everyone there.
It's going to be so fun.